To order, Portland City Council. We're ready to start with the Public Works part of our agenda. Alderman Bratton.
Ordinance 13-02, first reading, ordinance authorizing a contract between the City of Portland and Jacob Engineering to provide engineering service for the sewer rehab CDBG project on DeMay Street. Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. That's for discussion.
This project was basically something that we talked about in the work study. It's just applying for a grant, and Jacobs is customary for the engineering firm that we select to provide those services, and if we were to receive the grant, then they would be the engineer of record.
That's correct. All right, any other comments or questions? I know we had a...
And they get the blessing of our public works superintendent.
Right.
He got knowledge of our system and all. So.
Let me, we had a lot of questions. I think we all were kind of saying the same thing last week, to be sure. The $500,000 grant that we're going to get is for $500,000. We get 100% of the construction project paid of the project up to $500,000 plus. Now, 100% of engineering administration is paid in that, then we'll pay 14% of the amount. If it goes above $500,000 grant funds, and we are responsible for that funds. We'll pay, in other words, we're going to get $500,000 grant funds. I think we were kind of leaned that we were only getting that much and we pay part of that, but we will get a total of $500,000 grant funds to be engineering, administrative, and construction, but we will pay a percentage of that until it meets that top dollar. So. All right, any other comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Item B, ordinance 13-03, first reading. It's an ordinance authorizing a contract between the City of Portland and the Utility Service Company, Inc. to provide professional maintenance and asset management for water storage. Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
This is an item that we also discussed in work study. I had some, and I do have some concerns, and Alderman Menace raised some of those concerns in the work study. And in doing a little research on this matter, a lot of cities actually, because of the amount of the money of the contract, and this is an ongoing contract with one entity, a lot of cities actually hire a independent individual to do inspections at the same time as they provide their inspections. So you would have their guy go in, look at the inside of the tank and make an assessment, and we would have an independent person joining him and see if they concur. And if they did not concur, then that person and his inspector, we could work that out at that time. So it's like someone looking on our behalf, not that we don't trust them, I just think it's good business, given, we're going to be in, quite a bit of money on this contract long term. So I would like to amend this to allow for that and allow for the mayor to contact whomever to provide that independent service. And in speaking to their representative, he indicated that this is something that was commonly done, or other cities actually did that. And he wouldn't have a problem with that.
What's the cost on doing something like that?
I don't know, but I know that the total contract is, what was it? What million was it?
$1.6 million.
$1.6 million.
And restate your motion.
My motion is to allow the mayor to contract with an independent individual that's qualified to make an inspection of the tanks annually at the same time as they make their inspections, and see if they concur that what should have been done is done.
You're amending the...
I'm amending the motion.
Right.
Oh, wait a minute. I need, where's the public works director?
Yes.
I mean, we need to have a ballpark figure here. We just can't
just
toss
want
this
something
out
blind
and
like
say,
that.
I need to know
Ballpark figure for
an independent inspection. What are we currently paying for inspections of a tank?
Most of them are $2,000 or $3,000
Per tank.
What good is that going to do
Well, I
us
think
if
that's
it's not in the contract that they have to abide by our inspection?
Well, we need to have something in the contract that they concur if there's a dispute, that then there has to be some resolution. If other cities are doing this, there's got to be some language to allow it.
Well, I assume
Well-
the
Process
contract
tonight.
by this gentleman here
It has nothing
going
to
to
do
have
with
a
his
con-
contract.
is going to have a contract provision that allows for, that an independent inspector may be involved, and if there is a dispute between the two, there will be some mechanism in this agreement that allows for the council to approve that expenditure before anything's done, something to that effect. Is that correct?
Yes.
And your company has no problem with that?
No, it just has to be something in language to cover insurance, you know why? Because while we're on the job site, our insurance certificates are, you know, they're under us, and they'll have to, you know, come on the job site and find space and whatnot, but there is. And a lot of times the cities will just do it, or tank owners randomly, you know, they may do not the whole job, just a piece of it. You know, so it won't cost as much, just to check in. It makes the cities feel good about, you know, what they have also, that their means are being protected.
So what, and here's what we'll have to have, I mean, I can't vote on it now, based on that amendment. So that's what I would have to have personally. I would first need that language that's commonly being used, had to be submitted to our attorney. He's gonna have to look at that. I'll have to know what an independent inspector is gonna charge, and we'll have to know what that is. I mean, I'm down water now.
Whose
before-
decision trumps who? If the independent guy
That's what
says,
he
we don't
said,
like
that's
what
what-
this
that's
is,
what-
that's
There's
what we're
arbitration
do.
gonna have to enter in. If he comes in and says, hey, you guys are doing something you shouldn't be, or you didn't do something right, then who decides arbitration after that point?
Give us an example. I mean, this is bound to have come up. How does this work?
It's usually done beforehand, before it reaches, you know,
No. I mean the dispute process. How does that? How
it's
does it
just-
work?
They just talk, they just talk between their inspector and our inspector. We'll talk, and, because inspection process can be, I mean, it's according to how the specs are written. Our maintenance contract, our service agreements, or service contracts are given to our crews, or, you know, layman's terms, you know, like I was telling the SSP numbers earlier, they're put in there so that sometimes inspectors want more detailed specs to inspect, and this all depends on that. It's according to what inspector you get, if that makes.
And your
Yeah,
inspectors are they're in-house inspectors,
NACE
but they're
certified.
trained and certified by a different entity, correct?
Well, they're sent to school by to pass NACE. NACE it's National Association of Corrosion Engineers. It's a certification for an inspector.
Is there some type of, like, if it were to go to court, if we had our inspector go up and inspect this, and we were not, and our inspector said this is not up to standard, and your inspector said it was up to standard, is there a set of guidelines that would go into that proceeding?
There's tests and stuff you can put in, yes, sir.
And so your inspectors have been trained in all of this and would
Right.
be equipped to, they would have the knowledge to know if our inspector said this is not right, they would know if they argued with our inspector whether it was right or wrong, and whether they could beat it in court if we decided to go that route.
Now, with being under this contract, your inspector's goal would be to find everything that was wrong on the front end, so it doesn't grow to be a large problem on the back
Right.
end, am I correct?
Yeah, the inspection process, like Mr. Bratton is talking about, is just for the city itself. I don't want to say make them feel better or not, but it's because the inspection process that our inspectors are doing, we want the inspector to find anything that goes wrong with that job. Because if not, that's the whole point of the service contract, because if that job only goes 2 years before it turns bad, and our inspector didn't catch it, well, utility services on the hook, we got to come back and pay to fix that problem.
It's kind of like dental work. You want to catch it early before you catch it late, because a
Now,
small versus a large.
let me make sure I have
Thomas, I mean,
the,
well,
pro-
go ahead, Ted.
the process here correct. We are signing a contract with you, and if your inspector misses something and something goes horribly wrong out there, our costs do not go up. That your company will be on the hook for taking care of that, would they not?
Right, yes, sir.
Except
So-
for later in the contract, if they hadn't really performed what they were supposed to be performing, I think's where Mr. Bratton's getting to. If we get into the 7th, 8th year and really they haven't done what they said they were doing before, when our 10 years is up, we're on the hook for a bunch of work that never got done to begin with. Is that where, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
It is,
but
and it's
you're
all,
wrong.
and it's all in the specs too. And, I think we need to just slow down a little bit and look at his specs on what, and as he say, that those specs is what his inspector's gonna actually inspect based on. And we may need to get somebody to even look at his specs.
That's right.
Because, what could happen and is that, I've had a car that I've patched up and kept running, and it passed MOTA, and all those things, and I got, tags, but, then near the end, that patchwork didn't really work out so well. And I'm not accusing this firm naturally of doing that, but I'm just saying that's the downside that could happen. And I just think it's, if we're gonna spend almost $1.5 million, and I do think, and I think putting 3,000 out, because we're not talking about an inspection where that person's gonna have to certify and all of that. So I do think the mayor can find someone that will actually follow those guys and take those specs. And we can do randoms, because typically, good work follows, and we know where our bad tanks are, and we would follow him and actually do the inspections on how many we've received, and not maybe even share him which tanks we're gonna do the inspections on. But I just have a better comfort zone every year that we're in good shape.
So you want to
Well-
defer this for the next meeting and give
I
everybody time to
think
get
if it's-
language and somebody, so we know what cost is, because the attorney needs to see the language, and I need to know what the cost is.
Understand
I think,
Are you gonna provide a proposed contract about the second reading?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
This
You hadn't
requires
seen
two
an initial
readings.
contract.
And I think if they pass it tonight, before it comes up for the second reading, it's scheduled now to come up on the 4th of February. So that gives you a short period of time to get this contract to Thomas,
Yeah.
so it can be reviewed in-house.
is there any rule against us postponing the second reading?
No.
I mean,
No, you could move to.
If it don't get here in time, we could delay it.
I think that we probably will need more time than that with
Right.
the contract.
Have you been sent a copy, Thomas, of the proposed contract that they've?
That gives us a couple work studies between now
And not just the
two.
contract, it's really important about those specs.
Right.
Because they're gonna perform based on the specs that they outlay, and Thomas is a good superintendent of public works, but he's not an engineer or a tank person. So we need to feel comfortable about those specs also.
What it boils down to is we can have an inspector go up there and say that this isn't done well enough to suit that inspector, but if by our contract, it says it only has to be done up to this specific spec, then
That's the biggest
There's
problem
nothing-
right there. Make sure, as long as we're going on the specs, because
That's,
sometimes inspectors want to, they want this instead of this.
Right,
We
right.
give you that, but you got, you're gonna pay,
the
pay
type,
extra.
the type paint, the quality of paint, the amount of paint, all those being his specs. And so that is important as the language of the contract. And I appreciate that.
Well, let me
that
ask you this,
being-
since you brought that up tonight, based on your concerns. Is this something you would rather just simply defer until we got this information, or you got enough confidence in you that you're willing to go on the first reading and wait till the information comes for the second?
Before you answer that, did y'all see this at the work study, what he just handed me?
Yes, I gave copies to everyone.
Okay, I wonder if
Yeah.
they've
I mean,
actually.
basically what Alderman Bratton is proposing is just what we went through with our finances. Basically, we're asking for an independent person on our side to do an audit. Second set of eyes, segregation of duties. I mean, basically, it's getting down to just a double check and pull your samples here and there that
and if
everything's
we can know
going-
what that cost is, then could we not just put that as a line item in the budget to where we could use it at any point
Right.
in the year?
Yeah, and we can, of course, we got a work study next Monday. We can have y'all already got a contract you can send up next day or two?
I was gonna say, we probably can get these done, today's Tuesday.
That's
Should
right,
be
we
done,
should.
either out tomorrow or on the email tomorrow.
So we
For
may
sure.
could have all this information by work study Monday night. to
But let
put
me
on
ask
the
you a
work
study.
question. I mean,
Well,
we're
the only
talking
thing-
about, let me ask something real quick. We're talking about these standards and these specs. I mean, you have to abide by those as anybody else. I mean, you're not coming up with your own standards. I mean, doesn't these tanks have to meet a standard? I mean, are you deciding what standard is standard, or does an agency decide what the standard is?
You
We
go
do
by
specs on those,
AWWA or?
AWWA
okay with
has
them.
some standards and also the SSPC.
That's what I'm saying. If you went in and done some substandard work, and we brought somebody in down the road and they said, I can prove that these guys did not do according to the codes or whatever you wanna list it as, they're liable because they did substandard work to begin with.
Well, it wouldn't be substandard because the specs didn't call for that level of coating, of that level of paint, that level of you know, but that's the whole key.
Minimum
It wouldn't be
standards-
substandard,
minimum
it
allowable
would
standards
be
may
what
not
they
be
spec, and
sufficient.
they done what they spec.
The
Mr.
easiest thing is,
McDowell's got a comment.
I was gonna say something that kinda went along with their questions that they have. Do you have different levels of service that you perform? Are you putting those on the same maintenance program, the same specs, and the same work that you do for the city of Hendersonville? Or are we on like basic plan and they're on the deluxe? I mean,
no, there's a limited program and a full program. Y'all on the full program, limited are usually like concrete tanks. There's no structural really you can do. If it breaks, you don't know it's gonna break until it breaks. But the steel tanks, they're just like the city of Hendersonville, which y'all are having. So the contract's already drawn up, and some attorneys may want a few words changed. Some are fine with it, it just all depends on, but usually the language in there for the
but we're not on
contract.
some kind of an economical plan. We're on the
No, sir.
blown
No, sir.
that gets the royal treatment. Make sure that they're okay.
The language in there would just be something like 2 sentences or whatever that says an independent the city can allow or an independent contractor to enter any job site at any time to inspect. And it's kind of, you can sit there and draw these things out and write a 200-page document on an inspector coming to look with this simplest language terms usually that's what I can understand. So, but we can have those out and just have every job, like usually every tank has its own contract, and what we'll do is just put the specifications, like the Caterpillar tank's gonna have the drape containment around there in each contract for the
And
renovation work.
and each one of the contracts will have specific, detail, about what you're gonna do to that tank. And the specs on that tank.
Right.
And so that's the key, and the reason I would hate to, and it's, 15 degrees out there, so I don't think we're gonna start any tank work, here in the next little bit, so I would like another week, because I would like someone smarter than I am to look at those specs, and just look at, the paints, the quality of paint, how much you go in and do actually to the product, all that is the key, and it's just something I'd feel a little bit more comfortable with if we.
So you do want to defer tonight and then let's try to have all the information we can for the work study?
Yeah, and we could pass it on first, but not plan on maybe dealing with it
Until we do
until, put it on the agenda when we all were satisfied with,
Right.
with all the,
and we may can have, we'll try to have all of it for the work study.
Well, that's
May
fine.
not- May not be able to make it, but we'll try, so.
I mean, I'm okay, I'm not trying to delay it, and I think it's, given our financial condition, I think it's the way we ought to go. I just think we need to put in as many safeguards as we can for a city who's gonna sit here 10 years from now and
Can
say,
I ask you just a quick question and just for my own benefit? Where will we go for someone to look at these specs?
Just another engineering firm who, has a tank experience. I mean, you want to go.
I mean, so, let me ask this, what would it cost for them to look at these specs?
We'll have that for you Monday.
So you're just gonna call them and say, so when you
Call
come,
it.
that's
That
what
would
you're,
be
so you're not
very
actually,
minimal.
so you're not talking about having somebody look at specs, you're gonna tell us what it would cost for them to look at the specs. And I got a feeling they're probably not gonna look at them for free and say, let me go over all these, so they're gonna charge us something, so I gotta know what that is, I need to know what independent inspections cost, and then their language with the lawyer needs to say. So there's 3 things, really, not just 2.
Probably their competitor that's gonna give us.
I'm
the-
gonna,
And that depends on what the cost is, because see, that's what I'm saying, sometimes things get out of control and they snowball. I don't know what somebody would charge to look at specs. Not everybody has a kind heart when it comes to looking at engineering things that we have sometimes, and so I don't know what that
Right.
would cost.
We'll get all that.
We've
Yeah,
got
we-
a lot of major projects, I don't know if we've ever had an independent inspector come in, but I know a lot of times we needed one.
I don't disagree with you, man.
I mean, it had been how many years ago that we were talking about going
I've
with
kinda
my
looked at the
generator
book.
at the water plant, that was the thing to do, and we spent all this money and did that, and then
Engineer.
several years later, that was the
Yeah,
worst
just
mistake we ever
not
made.
too many years later.
Right.
well, again, and this
Did
kind
the Caterpillar tank recently.
Yeah.
might bring some comfort. The list of references that they
That's what I'm saying. I
bring
said, he's already written specs.
is substantial. And you wouldn't have that many references if they were putting the paint that was substandard, or they weren't doing the job that he's, if he was up here selling a snake oil right now, the people that were, all those references would tell us, don't buy it, it's snake oil. That, to me, that the references speak volumes.
And did y'all get the email from Thomas from Hendersonville?
Not that we don't, I'm not saying we don't need to look at the specs very, very closely. I don't know that we need to hire an engineering firm necessarily, because I think that there's probably a minimum set of standards.
Their reputation speaks.
Well, I mean, they're
I'm
going to
not just saying, I think there's probably a minimum set of standards that we can look at and compare this to, and if it's obviously following exactly the minimum set of standards, then that may be a sign that we need to look a little harder into it, but if it,
I think you're totally misunderstanding it. It's like if you were to go have your car painted, there's a place in Nashville that you can get a $300 paint job. But if you were to take it to a dealership, it may be a $3,000 paint job. And obviously that $3,000 paint job is going to last longer and hold up better than the $300. They're going to all look good in the beginning.
Unless they just charge more.
But I'm just serious with that. But my point being is that you can write that $300 paint job in your specs and perform that test, and he's done what he said he's going to do.
I understand, but you're
But
not
I
going to
don't
get the
know that.
references from that. You're not going to have pages full of people saying, boy, I sure love my $300 paint job. They're going to say my $300 paint job sucks, and it only lasts a little while, and that's horrible.
No, you're not. I mean, initially it's going to look good. But
I know what but eventually they're going to say it wore off, and they don't good no more.
But we need to figure out, so I'm asked back to the question again.
All right, we're going to get.
Based on your information, do you want to defer this, or you, without any information, or do you want to go on a first reading?
Personally, I think we need to defer it. David needs to look at the contract, but we need to get a set of the specs on each one of the tanks, and then that someone more knowledgeable than I think anyone in this room, maybe except for the engineer, almost the engineers in here, look at those specs and see if that's what we need to have a continuing product that's going to last us through this period that we're going to sign a contract for.
That a
So
motion?
you're saying we need to defer it, or we need to
I
pass the
think we need
first
to defer
reading?
it. Why don't we just defer it at this time until we get all the information?
You make it in
That
front
is
of a
really the
motion.
best thing to do is, because you brought in a wrinkle that we need to think a little bit about. And I really believe that Thomas needs to think about this as department head, and it would be better to have that contract in hand. And they've had experience doing this, I think you've said, with other situations. So this will not be very complicated for them to have this contract. And Thomas can review the contract, I can review it, and we can discuss it one more time. Putting it off until the 4th on the first reading is not that big a deal. It's something that's long lasting. So my recommendation is you defer this tonight to the next work
Is it for a
study, but that
I
time.
put that in formal motion.
Second.
We have a full motion second. All in favor of deferring, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I think you had a question, didn't you?
Oh, I was just gonna make the comment to make sure, because the way you're going is getting further away from the maintenance program that the city was
Right.
wanting to begin with. You're starting to get, utility service has their own inspectors, or we buy our paint from Tanemi. Everything's on one roof, and the more you start trying to, you're almost going out to bid again for getting the Caterpillar tank done on a one-time deal. Because on our maintenance program, you can see the tank if it's starting to check or rust or the paint falling off, you're going to see it. And on the inside, you get inspection reports every year with pictures showing the inside. So there's nothing really to hide unless somebody's in there touching up every time. You're seeing what's there.
Right.
Either brown, which is rust, or white, which is epoxy. So
And Utility
that's all I'm saying.
Services was the tank company that was the bid that we were going to accept for the Caterpillar tank anyway, so they're the same company, so.
Right.
Just simply because they were low bid.
That's
It
right.
doesn't mean because they.
And it was
Well,
based
I
on
think we've
those.
got our directions.
We're
and,
ready to go.
Get that to Dave as soon as you can, and we can
Sure
make
will.
him still be prepared within just a couple of weeks for our original time frame. So.
Okay.
Can I ask you one more thing? The
Yes.
inspection, when they do the inspection, you say we do get an inspection report with photographs and things like
Right.
that, per tank, per year.
Per tank per year.
They come in after the job's done, check everything.
Yes, sir. During the job and after the job.
He comes in during the job to,
Right.
before it's painted. Before it's
Well,
painted.
he's looking at, what he's looking at is like on the outside, the pressure wash and the tool cleaning, what I was talking about before, making sure that's like it's supposed to be. Then he'll come in, and it's according to what job it is. Like when the Caterpillar job is going on with the containment system, he'll be here a lot more on that one than he will be on just say an overcoat on the outside of the tank. But again, you can see if he's doing faulty work, like y'all said, I think 4 or 5 years the paint was falling off, you're gonna see that utility service is still liable for it. So kind of the checks and balance.
Okay.
And I think just Alderman Bratton said, listen, this is a $1.6 million contract. He just wants to ensure that we're getting the best bang for our buck, and
That's
that's
fine.
just a simple request.
Okay.
I'll get that to you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, next we got resolution 1307. Mr. Gray.
1307 is a resolution authorizing the city to advertise to request for the proposal for motor service agreement for the city of Portland. Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion, second. Any comments or questions? All this is just going out for RFP to request that.
And I appreciate Thomas bringing this to our attention and going after this to see if it's something we want to move forward with.
Try not to come back with one.
Yeah.
And I want
Yes,
to
sir.
say too, I appreciate Thomas
paid for that.
getting with the mayor and actually bringing this proposal about this maintenance contract, because given our financial status now, I think it's a good program. And I applaud him for coming up with the program.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, next we have the add-on, resolution 13-15. You want me to do that one, or you want?
Well, go ahead and do that.
Where we have the final change order for the contract with Portland Utilities for the community development grant project,
It's
which
not
is
on.
2011 Center Sewer System Improvements in Evergreen. What this is your final change order. You've got your resolution, then you got your pages in back where it shows every item that was on there, whether it's either added or deducted to footage. This is common with all your end change orders, and it has a add-on at the end of the original contract of $22,173.03. Can we have a motion, get it on the floor for discussion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right.
Just what do we feel like? That's about 10%. So what do we feel like kind of fell through, or just
Nothing fell through.
What was unexpected, I guess.
What happened here was that the city got benefit of extra work to be done, and of course we had to pay for it, but they ran a camera through the line. You can't tell that much. Once we got in, dug it out, got our hands on it, it was worse than what could be predicted, so there were some overruns in some of the repairs that needed to be done, and in some of the point repairs along with lateral repairs. But all in all, it was a good service to the community for that subdivision. Once you found it, you couldn't just leave it unfixed, so that's why it was.
That open cut was the big one, right?
Right, there was two items on your open cut. One was for like additional 8,700, and one was for additional 14,280 foot.
Did the camera find these problems?
put in.
Yeah, the camera found a lot of the problems, and once they dug up and looked at it, there was more work that needed to be done. Laterals also got repaired as well. So it was work that needed to be done, whether we found it initially or we found it when we got into the ditch.
Thomas, was that system not installed correctly to begin with?
It wasn't installed correctly is what
Well, I mean, that's
I've
basically a
seen.
new subdivision over there, and it's amazing they've had that much trouble
Yeah.
already.
I believe it's 15 years old or 10 or 15
No, it's
years old.
older than that.
Older than that?
Yeah.
It was not installed correctly. And if it was installed correctly, then maybe the poor soil let the pipe settle and move. That could have been it as well. But once
I think I would
I'm
be,
glad.
I would be kind of reluctant to indicate the installation of a sewer project that you wasn't
Yeah.
here. You didn't have an inspection
I agree.
on at the results of what we have in now, because it could be various things.
You're right. It
Yeah.
could be.
Well, the
I'd be a little
subdivision was
reluctant to.
installed before the standards are in place now.
Yeah.
I mean, the inspections were not done then, were not in place by the city as we have now in place. So. And you have,
Well, just kind of just for my own benefit, when they cameraed that,
Mhm.
obviously they said, I mean, just running through that, when they say, okay, yeah, it looks bad, but it didn't look bad enough to figure in the original product, the project price. But when they got there, tell me what caused it to say, oh, okay, we recognize what needs to be done now. What was it, the difference between while you're there versus cameraing the project? in the
You
beginning?
camera through the sewer with a small little camera, and you're inside of a truck watching a screen. You know that there's point repairs that need to be made. You know that a service lateral could be messed up. I mean, at one point, so then you get the whole project going. You get out there, you dig it up, the service lateral has a longer stretch to be replaced. More needs to be done, more point repairs on that area than just.
So this 20 feet, this open cut,
Mhm.
20 foot, was it the laterals is all it was? It says here the service lateral replacement, so it was just, the lateral further out than they originally expected when they was repairing the 20 feet originally, and they realized past the 20 foot, it was just so damaged that they had to replace it. That's what they was looking at there.
Basically, yeah. But all in all, it was a good project. A lot of good got done for the city. The work needed to be done, whether it was seen on the front end or called on the back end. The work has been done for the city, and all in all, I'm.
What I'm hearing, and I hear this, each time there's a change order, and I'm gonna vote for this change order, but I think that what I'm hearing is that we need a lot more detail on exactly what occurred to cause the change order. Exactly. And oftentimes with exhibits, why the ditch is open, why they're out there, and I understand those laterals, you don't catch it with the camera. It may be a root growing as big as your arm and pulling, I mean, all that stuff, and I believe that. But I think what I'm hearing is, and each time we have a change order, I'm hearing a little reluctance, and sometimes something's gonna happen with these change orders. I think more detail, photographs, like a photograph with, when you found this, have somebody to photograph it, and, I mean, not tonight, I'm just saying, and going forward, so that, we can have something, we can say, okay, this is something outside the scope. Is that a fair assessment?
I agree.
Yeah.
That just brings confidence to everybody.
So I'll start bringing the photos of each.
Especially, I mean, like this
Only
particular
for the change
project.
order.
On the change order, is what we're
Yeah.
talking about.
So
Okay.
this is a 10% overrun
Yeah,
of a project.
yeah. This is on the quantities did go over.
No, I'm just saying, when you run up on it, just take a picture. You see it,
We
and
have
I trust
inspectors
you.
out there.
I
We do.
trust you.
We have that.
It's not that I don't trust you, but I'm saying, you see it, just snap a picture of it, so when you come in here and say, I got a $22,000 change order, you can pass the pictures around and say, this is what it is, fella.
It takes a lot quicker for you to go here than it does for you to have to sit there and
Yeah.
explain.
Sure will.
Yeah.
Well, you probably didn't see them in.
Yeah, we had a third-party inspector out there that
Third party.
wasn't part of us, that wasn't part of the contractors, that was part of the engineering group that was there.
The
So
ones I don't trust,
I do trust them.
I know.
All right, any other comments on this, and we know forward from now on what's expected of all departments of any change orders?
Yeah, and this with all departments, it's not necessarily with Public Works, and I'm not picking on Thomas, it's,
That's all of them.
All right, if anybody got anything, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
Okay.
One more quick thing, Mayor, before we leave, so that, I know tonight we have a resolution here to, accept that area out there, for Mr. Collins, where the, retention area is that, did I see
No,
that here?
well, just to waive the taxes.
Yeah,
We
wait
get
for
it.
taxes,
Right.
okay. There was a stub out put there in that retention that's been there for a long time, that I know that we're probably getting, influent into the, because it's probably broke at the bottom. Before we go out there and start cleaning up and all that, would you have someone to look at that and cap that down at the, as close to the main sewer line as you can? Because you can see it, it's just sticking up as one of those, they usually put a 4-inch pipe and just run it up so you can find it. Well, there's never gonna be a house there, but the clean out is still there.
two lots, and both of them probably got
Yeah,
it.
it's maybe two there.
All right.
All right,
Sure.
thank you.
All right. All right, next we'll move on to Parks and Recreation. Mr. Harbin.
Resolution number 1308, a resolution authorizing the city of Portland to advertise for 2013 leasing contract for the 33.9 acres of the Richland Park crop base located at Jim Courtney Road. Approved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
guess we got paid for last year, did we?
No, we have not. So, no. We'll get Mr. Amonette all the information together to see what he can do on it. So. I think I've got all that.
I think you're probably gonna spend money
I know.
getting that and forget it.
We're gonna make the effort, so.
Is there a motion on the floor?
Yeah, it's, and second, any other comments or questions?
Doug, I emailed you a copy of a contract. What went with the resolution had a piece of bad language in it. do we need to address that here? I need to make sure that that we've got the proper contract with with that resolution. Item 5, section 5 rather, first paragraph. It was the version I got emailed Friday. Last sentence of first paragraph had a line about payment at the end of the crop year.
To be made at the harvest of the crops.
Yeah, well, that's stricken. That's in it. I've got it revised here. I also emailed you one today.
Yeah, because that contradicts.
That contradicts, yeah, and I don't know where that came from, but anyway, you would strike that. The next paragraph explains payment, and then all that was accurate. But that sentence, last sentence of first paragraph, section 5, would need to strike. Also added, on what I emailed you today, added Title VI language, section 13.
Okay, about the payment now, are we gonna get it up front from now on?
In this
The
here-
proposal for this is 100% due at the execution of the contract in year 1. And we didn't discuss Monday, but I added in this language here, we needed to outline something for year 2. So if we pick up option year, what I proposed in this was that full payment for the option be in the second year, due by March 1 of year 2. And that would be confirmed with a formal notification from the landlord that we pick up option on year 2. And that would typically be, around the first of the year. I think March 1 is.
With the lease every year. The lease sign.
Well, basically, you
That's
are.
what we said.
Well, he's saying on March 1st.
Well, we get
With the
paid,
option.
we get paid, what he's saying is we get paid when they sign it, but on the next year, if they're gonna continue, they would have to pay it by March 1st or the lease is voided.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. So,
And did Counselor, have you reviewed the lease and you feel comfortable with?
I frankly just got this, so I have not.
It is the same language that we used last year.
I
The only
reviewed it
change
in
was
the past,
was
and I
section 5.
understand what I have here is what you did not modify. I didn't get your email on this, so
Would it be wise for him just to review it before the next council meeting?
I think that
Would that be a wise?
go ahead and with it now.
You wanna defer it then?
No, I think go
I
ahead
think
and
we
pass it.
approve it
Mr.
upon
David,
approval of
we've got a legal
Yeah, pass it
contract.
contingent upon David reviewing it, and if he's.
I've actually reviewed this in the past as it was before, and I see the one change that he just made, so it's. I
You
see
okay?
no
Okay.
I appreciate Alderman White. He brought this kind of up before us more than once to the council about payment and those concerns, and it kind of come true this time for us, so it's probably the best way to handle it.
Very good.
You are sending out requests for proposals on this, right?
Yeah, when
We
we
already
get,
submitted.
when
We
it's,
just-
when it
yeah,
gets, when it gets approved tonight, then we'll advertise.
Yes, but we've not done anything yet.
We don't have to lease this property, do we?
No, we don't.
Okay.
And that will be in our advertisement language, the city has the right to refuse or accept any or all.
Would anybody like a copy of
Do you know about what it would cost us to do the upkeep on that land if we didn't lease it?
But I don't know, here's something I don't understand. Right to retain all hay produced in the defined areas. The defined areas may not be altered or modified with seed or fertilizer without the written consent. Altered with seed or fertilizer?
Got that seed and fertilizer, make it grow.
Well, they have to have our permission to,
Right.
that way they don't use anything that's gonna do damage or run off and things like that. Doesn't say they can't use it, I don't believe it says they can't use it
Well,
without
We've never,
permission.
we haven't approved it in the past, though,
Altered, modified, this says altered, modified with seed or fertilizer.
without written consent or
Yeah,
something like that, right?
Advance approval.
What's it say after that?
Advance, I don't think it's written. I think it's prior or advanced, I think that's what
It
it
says
says.
without the advance written approval of the parks department.
Maybe it sounds like it's a good point. Maybe we need to clean that up and just say, something that's not.
Well, would you know
They may be looking.
what was bad and what wasn't if they wanting to put something on the land or wanting to spray it or something?
Would I personally?
Would you know?
No.
Well, how could you authorize it or not authorize it, or approve it or not
I
approve it?
can probably find somebody that knows.
What's this? Well. Okay.
It sounds like it shouldn't be in that, David.
What section we talking
I
about?
think it should be in there.
What section are we?
But
Which,
4.1.
4.1.
Well, read it and explain it to me then, if Councilman Menace is on target.
The defined area, which I assume
It's a 33 acres.
is a 33 acres. He is basically, has in there, it can't be changed, I'll just use the word changed, without the advance written approval of the Parks Department.
4.1 is addressing
That's just
the
bailing
7
hay.
acres
Right.
that we're letting them cut and bale hay off
Right.
of. It's not addressing
It's not
any of the
it's not the whole
farmland.
thing.
This is the additional, this is the 7 acres that we've defined in the northwest section of Portland Boulevard and Jim Courtney that they're cutting and baling hay off of, and
That
this,
will not be
it's not crops, this is
Okay.
just, because we
Just for
use
hay.
we use them
Okay.
twice a year to come in and get that hay off, and they can keep it. But
That's
and
still
it
a
saves
problem.
us having to maintain that. What that does is that does not allow them to come in and do something to that hay field, to that area, that
Can't grow
7
corn or
acres,
something like that on it.
to either grow something on it or to, and if I'm not mistaken, in
They would
research a couple
probably
years
still
ago,
wanna-
you can modify that, you can modify the hay field to generate a certain kind of hay that they may use. So we've got to have approval of that before they come in and make modifications. It may or may not be, it just depends on what they want to do. But our concern there is
This is solely under the part dealing with the hay.
that's,
not the
yeah,
rest
section
of it.
4.1 is, that's not anything to do with the 33.9. That's the additional 7 acres that we're using their service to pull the hay.
Second sentence.
Correct.
But even for hay, most hay croppers want to seed and fertilize to get hay instead of weeds.
And if, that's all we're saying is if they wish to seed and fertilize to generate something
have to get
different with the hay,
approval from Parks
we've got a right to approve
If
that
they
or
wanted
to
to
reject
plant
it.
sunflower seeds, for example, instead of cut it for hay, they would have to get the approval.
We'd have to approve it.
Right.
If we wanted sunflowers.
We may want some.
I like
All right,
sunflowers.
any other comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you, Brian. Public safety, Mr. Alderman Callis.
Resolution 1309 is a resolution to hire a volunteer fireman for the city of Portland, and the candidate being recommended to us by Chief Al West is Mr. Brandon Owen. Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion, have a second. Any comments or questions? And this is a replacement, not a new position.
I've got a question. Here on his application, and now this is gonna be is this gonna be a volunteer fireman?
Yes, sir, part-time.
Okay. Volunteer fireman. Okay. He's got on his application that he's making $18 an hour now. And upon completion of his, will be leaving after EMT school. So he's gonna put a $18 an hour job, and when he gets his EMT training school, he's gonna put that to become a volunteer fireman.
No, sir. His,
That's what he
his,
said.
his ambition is that he has put himself through EMT school right now, which is a prerequisite for a lot of fire departments for full-time position. And his hopes is that once he becomes, acquires his EMT certification, he is going to pursue a full-time firefighter's job in the future. And if he is successful in doing that, then he's gonna quit his job that he currently has.
Okay, well, it's a little bit misleading. It says, will be leaving after EMT school. That's it.
We'll have a benefit of his part-time service for that help.
That's correct, yes, sir.
So we or somebody else hires.
Right. Any other comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you, Alderman Callis. Next, we have Resolution 1310, is Resolution 3.1, member to Portland Health and Education Board. I'd like to put forth Ms. Teresa Levantino to reappoint her to this board. Do we have a motion to?
So moved.
Second. Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next, Resolution 13-11, resolution to reappoint one member to the Portland Regional Zoning Board of Appeals. I'd like to put forward to reappoint David Sims, who's been serving on the board, to reappoint him. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Got the game warden?
Yes. Next we have ordinance, first reading of ordinance 13-04. This is an ordinance about our dental health to continue with the Blue Cross. Have a motion, get it on the floor.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Like I said, this is first reading of ordinance to continue our dental insurance with Blue Cross. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next, have resolution 13-12. Is a resolution to authorize the city to advertise the request for proposal for a health insurance agent of record, so we can go out and get quotes and so forth, someone to help us with health insurance.
So moved.
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion second on the
Exactly
floor.
what is this? Why do we need a health insurance agent of record to do that?
In order to do through the state requirements of request for proposals, this is one of their guidelines, that you have an insurance agent of record. In other words, you don't want to deal with individual agents with their own companies, because they would be, you want an independent agent of record, somebody that can help you be sure you got, you're comparing apples for apples, oranges for oranges, things like that.
So this is gonna be basically a new employee?
It will be a contract type employee. I mean, that will be, once you do your request for proposals, once we get those in, we can interview them. That'd be one of the questions you can ask. Do you work on a fee? Do you work on percentage? You work on I mean, they can do it a number of different ways, and that'll be some things that we would have to discuss.
This is just a request for proposal, and we can
Right.
say, no, we don't even want it.
We won't need it,
when it's all
right.
said and done.
Right.
Okay, because I'd like, one of Mike's famous words is, I'd like to know the cost of this.
But I think this is first step, and then once you, every how many we get back, we can, have a work study and go through them and say, we want these 5, these 3 come in, and then we can talk those things with those individuals at that time.
This type of position could potentially save us more than it ever costs, too.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. I
And
just like
it's
to
benefit for the
have answers
city
to things.
and employees. You got somebody that's in between that can be sure that we're comparing for comparing, so.
And they'll be the main one that shops around for us too, to make
Right.
sure we're getting the best,
Right.
most
And then we're
cost-effective
comparing,
coverage.
Mhm.
Well, is this is something we've never done before, have we?
No.
We have a professional, human resources person now.
Right.
Can he do that?
He can do the tail end of that. He is not, and I don't think we expected out of him to be a professional insurance person. And with all the new laws and insurance get so complicated, it's recommended that you have that professional insurance person on the front end, then your HR takes it from that end backwards.
Keyword is recommended, not required.
It's not required, but it's highly suggested to be sure that through MTask and everybody, this is the way you go about it. I think, it's best for everybody. It's, because you get that insurance agent of record and you've got a good link. Like I said, all we're doing right now is a request for proposals.
Okay.
Did, Mr. Grubbs, would you like to say anything before we?
Just briefly, detect a concern on some of your parts that it may be a new employee, so to speak. It's kind of like the engineering firm. The agent of record typically works on commission based on what they make for bringing the plan to the table, and they shop the plans to make sure that we get the best value. So they make their money off of bringing us the best value.
From the insurance company?
From the insurance companies, yeah. They'll quote from Cigna, Blue Cross, Anthem, and the various companies, compare apples to apples and help us understand which plans benefit us and also which plan designs benefit us as a city and employees as well. There are 2 ways that the agents of record typically get paid: a flat fee in some cases, or a commission based on, what business they bring to the table. And they are licensed life and health insurance brokers, which is, that's an integral part to being able to shop the plans. It's not something that I could personally do.
All Any other comments or questions?
Did you say he made his money basically from the insurance company?
He makes his money on the commission of the overall cost of the package or on a flat fee, and it depends on how, the board would see fit to maybe choose a person that works on a flat fee, or possibly a person that works on a commission. The RFP will bring in both perspectives, hopefully, where we'll have people presenting an option to us to work on a flat fee, or presenting a disclosed, not a non-disclosed. Like you, I'm not comfortable personally, and I would assume that you as a board aren't comfortable having a broker work for a non-disclosed percentage where it's built in there and we can't determine what that is. So, that would be part
But the
of
city
it.
will have to pay that fee or that percentage.
It would come out of the overall
The
cost.
insurance companies probably are not allowed to pay that fee,
No.
would be my guess. It'd be
We
called
would pay
bribery.
it, but
then.
hopefully we had a bigger savings on the other end. of it.
Right, no, I agree. I agree. I just don't want the misconception that the insurance company's gonna be paying that
And then if you
percentage
can't-
or that commission.
Then if your broker can't get you any better deals and so forth, then you stay right where you are.
And they specialize in what they do.
Right.
And part of what this process is designed to do is test against whether the state plan is the most cost-effective plan for the city and the most beneficial plan for the employees at the same time. It kind of helps balance those interests. It helps us to compare, this is where we're at right now versus possible options. And it's not saying that we have to actually pursue the options, but it's a good sanity check to make sure that the options are all out there for you gentlemen to approve or reject.
All right, any other comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Might you be interested in that?
Nope. Had my turn in the barrel, brother. I got shot full of holes, so I'll just stay over here.
Nice, moving forward.
Well, see, if you wouldn't be, if you were being compensated at a percentage, it wouldn't hurt so bad.
All right, next we got Resolution 1313. This is a resolution, and we talked about in work study, and things have fell into place very quickly. Support of a Tennessee Department of Transportation for construction of turning lanes and signals at intersection of Highway 52 and 31W. Can we have a motion get on the floor?
Move to approve.
We have a second. We was approached by the state for this. It's a $70,000 local match. So we have met with the city of Orlando, Robertson County, and Sumner County. The city of Orlando and Robertson County both have passed it. Sumner County has passed it in their budget. It's still got to go to the full floor. But the state would like to have all this in by the end of January so they can get started on plans and so forth.
Awesome.
So we had talked about committing $17.5, which is 1/4 of the project, and this can be paid in next year's budget. They just need a commitment so they can move forward.
I think it's
So,
wonderful.
Is this gonna be a turn lanes on 31 and 52?
Right, with the signal.
It'll be a big intersection.
Yeah, it's going to really be nice there.
It'll
And there's some
improve
other
the
work
retail
they're going to
appeal
be
of it.
doing, so.
What?
It'll improve the retail appeal of that
Oh,
area
yeah.
considerably.
And some will really, and not just to muddy the waters, but we're going to have to really be serious if we can make this happen from that intersection, and then as we've talked here at the interstate. However, we need to make that, we need to light that up to where it's just as bright as can be, right there at the interstate, off ramps, and then right there at the four-way stop, and if we do that, you'll see that have a great effect, a positive effect, I think, on the city of Portland. But we may have to incur some costs for the lighting, because it's
Right.
out of our jurisdiction, so to
Right.
speak, there at the interstate, but we
Well,
need to
they-
make that happen.
Well, that can be included in the grant, can
Not in
On
this
this
particular
it? Not in
project.
that particular project?
Because when you get on the interstate, it becomes a whole different project than if this has just been a basic state road, it becomes
Federal
federal.
fund.
And I like to say, publicly, that to thank, this is, I think, sends a great statement where 4 government entities work together to share the cost of a project. It really says a lot. And so I appreciate all these other entities, and us all working together on this
Well,
project.
Mayor, I'll tell you,
So
I
it's-
appreciate you, because if you hadn't, you're the one that brought it to us, and you're the one that contacted
No.
them, so, I appreciate you going after this.
So I really think it's great. Is there any other comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next is Resolution 13-14. It's a resolution authorizing release of current taxes on property accepted from Larry and Wanda Collins located in Evergreen subdivision. Do we have a motion, get it on the floor?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
you know, we accepted 2 pieces of property and assuming just the tax burden. So this is resolution to authorize the release of the taxes on that piece of property
For the city of Portland.
for the city of Portland. Any comments or questions?
Luther mentioned the superintendent about the sewer tap, maybe
Right.
possibility of the city digging down and kept that thing. There's probably a water tap there too, it's mainly killing at the main.
I'll check.
Probably is, on both of them.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Pass. Since I voted not to accept these properties, I'm just gonna pass on voting on the taxes issue.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Next, we have our last item on the agenda is discuss whether to continue talks with HCA about purchasing the hospital property. As I said in the work study, we will discuss this, you know, we said we discussed it in all our public televised meetings. So if there's no resolution for this particular one pre-done, it would come out of our discussions here. So I'll open the floor for discussions, and if anybody has a resolution that they want to put forward, then you need to do the proper motion and get a second and discuss that particular motion. But for right now, open it for general discussion.
I feel we should just suspend any talks, and I don't see no need of moving forward at this that's just me. Let them do what they're gonna do. They made a commitment to open an ER. I'd say let them do it, and just,
I agree.
if sometime in the future we decide to want, I mean, I couldn't sit here and say I'd never talk to somebody about a project, but I'd just say there's no sense. Right now, I'd just say, hey, we're gonna suspend this, and
I don't see where there's any motion that's necessary to do this, though, is there? I mean,
Well, it was requested from a council member that we do a vote.
Oh, I see.
But
right, but I don't know, what would the motion be?
The motion would be that,
suspend.
currently that we're gonna suspend any negotiations with the hospital at this time
Second.
about the purchase. And I
Second.
think that's what you requested.
Reviewing any,
Wait a minute,
reviewing contracts.
From our standpoint and until when?
No, we're not, we're just suspending it now.
Really, the
Right.
easiest way to do that would just be
You can
to
bring it up anytime.
rescind the ad hoc
Yeah.
committee that was formed to negotiate with them.
But I mean, let's just keep on reviewing contracts and this and that.
I agree with you, but I don't know how we,
No, we have been
I think we're
verbally
complicating this, guy.
negotiating with an entity in a committee, and actually, when these individuals make presentation. We're just formally saying that we're gonna suspend any negotiations at this time.
Right.
I
So-
agree with Councilman Coker, though, we need to rescind the ad hoc committee.
The mayor just does that because he formed the committee.
That's what I'm
to
saying,
do
but that's, I mean,
Yeah, I don't
you
think
can
we're- I think
suspend it.
we're
Well, I think in this
complicating this.
resolution, we can do that. We suspend talks in the committee, put it all in one
Yeah.
resolution. That's what we want to do. So.
You need a motion.
I think we
I
got.
think we
I
got
would
a motion and a
amend,
second.
if it makes everybody feel comfortable, I would amend the motion for it to say that we would ask the mayor to suspend the, because he appointed it, he would technically would have to. So
what do we do if so what would we do if they come to us with another offer?
We could come
Comes
next
this
week.
fall.
You can always
next
come
council
back and
meeting.
say, hey, we got another offer.
Yeah,
Right.
we could
Council
say,
meeting.
yeah, 4 members could say tonight, we're gonna start negotiations again.
Right. All right, so we got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Does everyone understand what we're doing?
And they may come back next year and say, well, it's a little cheaper, $500,000, so.
All right, all in favor of
Did we
suspending
put
talks?
that
my breath.
amendment in that Tim wanted
Right.
on?
I think,
It's in?
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, that's okay.
Resolution to suspend talks and start ad hoc.
That's right.
You ain't got to
Do we
vote.
not
All
vote on
in
the
favor?
amendment?
Do what?
Do we not vote on the amendment?
Well, we
Or
wouldn't.
I mean, you're writing it on the fly.
Y'all got ahead of me. All in favor, say aye. Opposed?
I'm saying there's no votes
All
there,
right,
so
we have no
it's just
other
a moot point.
business, like I said, I do need, and this, if y'all will be quiet, let me talk and get in out there in 5 minutes. And David, do need executive commission, session very, very quickly. Does anyone else have anything for tonight?
I cannot go back there and talk just 5 minutes.
Well, that's your problem.
I need to get the rest of my pencil out when you're there.